Welcome to Matrix Live, Season 2, Episode 32 already.
Are we ever going to finish the season? Or are we just going to keep going? It's going to be like the first 78 episode season.
Yeah, maybe we should do that. Let's see, depends on what happens in the coming month, I guess. If we have some crazy event,
Yeah,
we'll have to increase the...
I think next time we should do it based on when we next have a cliffhanger. When there's next a big season finale, and you can feel all the tension growing as we get ready to ship the Riot redesign or whatever it happens to be, then there should be like the week before it's meant to go live, the season cliffhanger thing. And we can like whip the camera around and show everybody looking suitably stressed. And then,
then
who
starting
knows, will they get renewed?
or
Let's find out.
Matrix out of beta.
Indeed. Oh, yeah. Or 1.0. That'd be cool.
Yeah. Anyway, there has been some work this week. Riot Web, a lot of progression on end-to-end, but I'm not sure what really happens. A lot of words that I don't understand, so I'm going to ask Matthew to explain.
Basically, Dave and Uharag have been cracking along all week on end-to-end encryption, which is, I think, the single biggest spike in end-to-end work that we've seen in ages, thanks to other distractions like spec work, etc., disappearing. And the initial thing has been getting Megohm key backups working, and they work now. There is kind of placeholder UX on branches and Riot Web. We need to merge it in and get people to test it properly. I mean, we need to work out what the correct UX is going to be. But that is looking pretty promising. And a really fun side effect is that, oh God, I'm falling asleep, is that we switched out the JavaScript backend for Inscription, or Dave did more accurately, in order to make Olm build for Riot Web using the latest Inscription, which switches it over to WASM, or WebAssembly. And that makes the tests themselves run about 6-7 times faster. However, that includes all of the JavaScript and Node overhead of running the tests. And so my guess is that the actual crypto is sped up by a factor of about 20, 30. And so we should see all of our end-to-end encryption in Riot Web going about 20, 30 times faster in the very near future, and on Riot Desktop. So that is a pleasant piece of happenstance.
Yeah, that would be really nice. Let's see. And aside from the crypto, there have been a lot of hunting on the lazy loading bugs, which is quite a nightmare, especially given we're implementing the full end-to-end CI on it.
Yep.
So it's taking ages, but I think we're getting there, right?
Yeah, no, it's cool. I mean, basically, it's taking longer than you might expect because we are actually implementing all of the end-to-end tests for the various lazy loading edge cases. So this is using Bruno's new end-to-end testing framework for Matrix React SDK, which is using Puppeteer to spin up actual synapses and actual riots and check that the correct members appear in the right places for lazy loading. And lazy loading is confirmed as reducing RAM by about a factor of 5 on Riot, which is very, very desirable. I forgot to say on the crypto that Hubert also, or Uhareg also sprung on us a unexpected MSC, matrix spec change proposal for cross-signing. So if you are into your end-to-end encryption, go check out MSC 1680. Which is still work in progress, but super, super exciting to finally see the blueprints of how we shall do cross-signing to get rid of key verification forever, almost.
Yeah. Yeah, and we also have a new project for Riot Web, which is called First Impressions, on which Matthew and Travis are working, which is basically killing all the worst bugs that you meet during the first steps you're doing when using Riot. So its first 5 minutes, I think, was one of the just like the first steps you do. So once this is done, it would be amazing. And
we're limiting to about 50,
yeah,
possibly 60 bugs, which out of the 2,700 we currently have open on Riot Web is obviously a fairly small subset, but we've really gone through triaging like crazy to pick the ones which are pretty much guaranteed to bite new users in that first 24 hours. So you follow along on GitHub projects, which we're now using on almost all projects for project management now, if you're interested in Kanban boards.
We are also progressing a bit on the redesign. We had Bruno working on it today, and we have a workshop with Uni next week. And we also had Nad, who has actually joined us to provide some more design bandwidth, and basically has been focusing on onboarding flows and fixing UX issues in communities and this kind of very small things that we can't wait to see landing.
Yeah, I mean, if we look more or less dead than ever, it's not because it's at the end of the week so much as we've just spent 3 hours in here with now going through the entire UX of communities from first principles again and basically trying to put right what once went wrong, much like Sam Beckett from Quantum Leap. What about Riot Web? Riot Mobile.
So on the mobile side, a lot of lazy loading as well, and basically going through all the problems so that we can ship everything at the same time, and lots of refinement, and the rest of the team has been mostly working for the French government, but don't tell anyone.
And Synapse, it's been a really productive week actually, albeit entirely on operational and making Synapse better stuff rather than spec work. So apologies, spec fans. We're going to be back on the server-to-server RNaught stuff in October. I think we're going to have another week of operational stuff next week, and then it's all systems go to basically spend October blitzing the remaining S2S stuff, a bit like we did in August. And in fact, in general, we're considering moving to a rhythm where there's like a month of business as usual operations, Synapse dev, back-end dev work, and then a month which is a lot more spec and matrix as a protocol focused. So basically implementation spec, to try to keep both of them going along, but without spreading ourselves too thin. And so on the actual implementation stuff, Python 3 support has merged to develop, thanks to all of Hawkell's work, which is in turn based on Notifile and Cromble and IntelliFX and other folk who've gone and helped in the past. And it looks awesome. It's like 2 to 3 times RAM improvement. VDH's home server has gone from 2 gigs RSZ to 950 megs, just consistently. Mine has dropped by about the same amount. If you haven't started testing it, now would be a great time in 0.33.5, which we cut an RC for a few days ago. Please do test that release candidate under Python 3.6 or 3.5 because it looks awesome and we want to get all of the bugs remaining fixed. Also, whilst we're talking about massive performance improvements, people might have seen Eric's state compressors tool, which I mentioned last week. This is pretty much finished now, and it actually does the edits to do the compressions. We've been running it on some things, and it's a bit experimental, but nothing, touch wood, has exploded yet. And it reduces disk space by at least 10 times. And I saw one report where somebody said it had reduced their disk space by 30 times, at least on the state group table. The only minor catch is that it hammers your database to death whilst it is going and rewriting the entirety of the table, which for us at matrix.org is about 1.6 terabytes right now. So that is quite a lot of compression that it has to do. But it looks as if it's promising and will give a big green light once it's ready to be done for everybody, and possibly might get just built into Synapse so that next time you upgrade it goes and slowly compresses everything in the background. Don't know yet.
Does it have an icon of a big compressor?
I hope so.
Or a name with a big K on it, like the state compressor?
It sounds like it should, but yeah, I think it's sitting on Eric's personal GitHub space at the moment. I don't know what that's about, but no icons, tragically. But it should cheer up everybody who's upset about how massive that table becomes. And finally, lots and lots of work on Synapse, catching up on PRs from the community and internally, and also Rich has been investigating and fixing many Federation bugs, including a couple of regressions, which look like they may have crept in during the 0.33 series. So apologies, the Federation's been a bit flakier than normal. We've found, I think, most of the root causes and a whole bunch of new ones, and it's really nice to be able to spend some time making Synapse's Federation suck just a little bit less.
Yeah. On bridges, we have Shot actually joining us to work part-time on bridges going forward.
Are you about to pronounce half shot as half shot?
Huh?
It sounded like you're going to drop the 8. No, never mind. Yes. So Halftrot joins us. Yay! Part-time.
Yes, at least it means we're going to have some level of maintenance on all the bridges, especially his connection-based IRC bridging antics, which are going to have more progress. And so far he's been catching up on PRs and maintenance backlog on both IRC and Slack bridges. What else do we have?
I should talk about funding for once. We never talk about funding. We should say thank you, everybody who still watch Matrix Live. Our viewing figures seem to have plummeted a bit recently, which is a bit sad. But some people still say that it's useful to hear us give a personal update on where things are at over the last week. And we're actually trying to think of ways to spice it up a bit and make it a bit more interesting. Although we need to discuss that with Ben and try to work out what we can do with that.
Yeah.
But thank you, Patreon supporters who are watching this through Patreon, or indeed LiberaPay, because...
Oh yeah, I did fix LiberaPay. They've made some changes, and because their MangoPay was throwing them out, so they added Stripe and PayPal support, and then it was blocked until you had associated a Stripe or PayPal account, which I did this week because apparently I hadn't noticed, and they never told me that they did so. So thank you for warning us that LiberaPay was not working anymore, and it's fixed.
And I guess we should thank our sponsors, the lovely people at NewVector, and their first software as a service product, Modular, which we still haven't properly launched yet. But we do have our first customers on, and feedback has been pretty positive in terms of how easy it is to spin up one of these home servers with a single click, and then have a really, really, really snappy Synapse at your disposal with a custom domain name and custom subdomain and all that sort of thing. So if you are craving for a paid premium home server experience, please do go and give it a go and let us know. And that must be about it.
I think so.
I'm sure we're missing something. Dendrite is basically paused until folks join us to work on it, hopefully in the next month or two, which is not the end of the world given Paul Dendrite's progress has been slightly intermittent, but it's still heading in the right direction. Meanwhile, I think we're doing the right thing by doubling down on Synapse to get basically Synapse to a 1.0 and avoid having to implement Matrix. Implement the teething pains we're going through on the server-to-server stuff twice, once on Dendrite and once on Synapse. We might as well get it right first time on Synapse.
Dendrite?
No, on Synapse.
By starting with Synapse.
Yeah, so we get it right on Synapse rather than implementing the broken stuff on Dendrite and then also having to implement the fixed stuff on Dendrite too, which is just a waste of everyone's time.
Right. I was trying to think about events, but I don't think there is much coming up. There is the Web3 Summit in end of October. It's quite far away.
And there's TANT Summit must be coming up pretty soon too.
Oh yeah, that's right.
When is that?
Well, no, I think it's early November. I think it's 5 to 8 November.
Oh really? Yeah. Oh yeah, November the 13th is TANT Summit in Lisbon, where Ben is going to be flying the flag, and FOSDEM deadline's coming up too. I've actually remembered to book a stand for us this year, but need to actually get talks in. And this is starting to sound like one of our random planning meetings and not Matrix Live. So perhaps we should just hang up and let everybody enjoy their weekend.
See you soon. Have a good weekend.
Thanks for flying, Matrix. Bye.
Bye.